Welcome to our first installment of Taking the Leap, P6 to OPC. Our first topic is the EPS versus Workspaces. First, I want to talk a little bit about how these two structures are similar. Their main goal is to organize our projects and aid user access to data within our applications. They're both hierarchical structures that should consist of a single root that's typically representative of our overall organization. They're both usually created and maintained by our application administrator, and they're really important structures, so they should be well thought out and intentionally designed based on our specific organizational needs. The biggest difference between these two applications really lies in how data is managed and at what level that data is going to be managed. In P6, we have two types of data. We have enterprise or globally available data, and we have project-specific data. Project-specific data is just what it sounds like. It's data that's created within the context of an individual project, and it's only available to that individual project. Now in OPC, we don't really have global data. We have data dictionaries that are created and maintained at workspace levels. Those workspaces can optionally pass those data dictionaries downward to children workspaces and objects within that workspace, like our projects, which provides a little bit different standardization that's kind of specific to a workspace hierarchy, like an area of that hierarchy, rather than globally set data dictionaries that all projects will use. So it just opens up a little bit of freedom in how we manage that data and at what level we're providing that standardization across our projects in our organization. Now, because of how that data is defined and passed downward in our workspace dictionary, it does become a little bit more complicated to change that hierarchical structure later on in OPC, which is why it's really important to kind of think about how we should create that workspace structure in OPC specific to how OPC works rather than how we currently do business in P6. So I would really pause before I decide to simply recreate that EPS structure in our OPC workspace structure, because we might see that data need to be shared a little bit differently based on how we're going to organize our projects moving forward within OPC. So we really want to think about the specific ways data can be shared in OPC and structure that workspace around how that data is going to be shared downward to children workspaces and projects within an individual workspace. Now I want to take a quick look at each application so we can see how that EPS and how our OPC are created and managed in each area. First, I'm going to start in P6. Now, immediately upon looking at my P6 screen, you can see a big difference between how P6 and OPC will support these structures. In my current EPS, I have two root nodes. I have a training root and a global PM root. OPC would not support this type of dual root setup. Now, I will also say that it's not necessarily best practice to have two roots in P6, while it is a capability that the application offers us. The other thing that I want to point out about my P6 EPS is that it is a little bit more forgiving in how I can add and change that EPS hierarchy. So if I need to later on add in a new part of my EPS based on maybe how my organization is growing, then I can pretty quickly and easily move that EPS structure without a whole lot of impact that will negatively affect my projects that are in flight. Now I want to go ahead and move over to OPC, where from my Get Started page, I'm going to navigate to view where I'm going to maintain my workspace list. In that workspace list, I can see all of the workspace hierarchy that I have access to see, and as an application administrator, I can see all of my workspaces. Now, the first thing I want to point out about my workspace structure in OPC is that out of the box, I'm going to get a corporate root, production, and non-production workspaces. I can change the name of any of these workspaces, but I can't delete them. I can't move them in the hierarchy, and I also can't add another item to the second level of this hierarchy. Everything needs to be added beneath production or non-production. I could potentially, as I mentioned, give production and non-production different names. If I'd like to repurpose them for some reason, I can do that in here. But I can't actually delete that hierarchy or add to the second level of that hierarchy. I can, however, add in those elements underneath, which is where my projects and other objects would be stored. Now, the main difference, like I mentioned, with this workspace hierarchy is that our data dictionaries can be defined at the workspace level. So within an individual workspace, I can define those data dictionaries within our view, summaries, and settings area. I can see all the different data dictionaries that I can define at the workspace level, and then I can define the sharing method for those data elements, which would determine if they are automatically or manually shared with children workspaces or projects or other objects within that workspace. That's going to really help me create a standardization within a specific area of that workspace hierarchy rather than globally across my organization to all projects that I would have in the application. Next, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the differences of how these data elements are shared downward to children workspaces within OPC. My name is Carrie, and I am a trainer with Global PM. I have nearly 15 years of experience implementing and teaching Primavera P6. But like a lot of you, I'm currently transitioning that knowledge from P6 to OPC. It is no secret that Oracle is looking to transition a lot of P6 users to OPC over the course of the next several years. And OPC is a great tool. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about the key differences between P6 and OPC. We hope that you can follow along. Hit subscribe, click the link to sign up for our newsletter, and let us know in the comments what questions you have and what topics you'd like us to cover.